I think the best way to do this is if everyone, as you come on, could please mute your audio, and then as each of the panel has the option to, as they share, we'd invite you to, we'll have the panel unmute their audio. And then if you have a question, if everyone can see my screen, you should have on your, if you're just phoning in, you won't have this option. But if you're logged into the meeting, there is a chat option that you have to basically ask questions. You can also ask questions through the phone if you'd like. I will be breaking throughout the presentation and asking if anyone has questions after we have a chance to hear from each of our panel. So we're going to go ahead and give people a few minutes before we log in. But again, we'd ask that everyone please mute their audio, and then as I bring you in, you can, as the panel, you can unmute your audio, and we'll hear from you there.
Hello.
Hi. Who is
Chet
this?
here.
Who's that? Hey, Chet.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing in Detroit, Michigan?
Hi, your dad's gonna go to Walmart and come by and get you guys. Is Paige awake yet?
Bell, can you call out, babe?
We don't want to go to Dad's. Dad's is no fun.
Okay, so Jackie just muted everybody for the panel when you're, so Ali, Rob, Tierney, Jacob, Brody, everyone who's going to be contributing. When you'd like to talk, there should be a button to unmute yourself. So please do that. And if you aren't able to do that, Jackie, we can unmute you from our end. All right. So it looks like we have more people joining. We're going to go ahead and probably just get started. And as more people come on, we'll, this is being recorded. So this is being made available. If you'd like the recording, please let us know. We have several organizations that have requested to post this recording as well. So so we're ready to get started. I just want to start off by welcoming everyone here. This initially was intended for our clients, and rapidly we started getting a lot of responses for people wanting to be on this beyond our clients. And so we've really tried to make this available to as many people who'd like to join. We are very fortunate to have a team of truly best-in-class subject matter experts for our clients. And we're going to have an opportunity to talk through that. Real quick, we want to read through a disclaimer. Jackie, are we able to mute everyone? So here it's a little background. So the disclaimer for today is, please be advised that the information shared during this presentation is intended to be informative in nature and is not intended to serve as specific investment, tax, insurance, legal, or estate planning advice. The information presented and discussed was obtained from sources we believe to be reliable, but is not guaranteed. We do not undertake any obligation to update or revise any statements contained herein or correct inaccuracies, whether as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise. Listeners are expected to make their own investment decisions. Nothing contained herein should be treated as investment advice, tax advice, or legal advice. So I think we're all seeing how rapidly things are changing. It was a little over a week ago, we were in Cincinnati with a group of doctors, and it was like 4 days later, it was like a totally different world. And I know we're seeing things changing very, very quickly. We have clients in the Bay Area, who are, shelter in place. Certainly clients on the East Coast, New York. So things are changing rapidly. But our agenda today, we hope to address some of the most urgent questions and needs we're hearing from our clients, but also from other experts within our team and within our field. So the agenda for today is going to go as follows. Myself, Brody, Chris Tate will start us off, talking about, as far as your plan, what options do we take? What variables do we plan for in the planning phase? We obviously don't know that the coronavirus is going to be the thing that causes us to go into recession, but we do plan for corrections in the market for recession. So we're going to be talking about that. We're then going to hear from Josh McSpadden and his manager, Carl, from Customers Bank, who are keeping very close tabs on the SBA, what options you have as small business owners to be able to tap into SBA funds, and they're going to talk about that. After them, they do have an urgent conference call to get onto, so we will open up questions specifically that anyone has specifically for Customers Bank or for any SBA or funding related questions. After that, Robert Eagleson and Tierney Aldridge will talk to us about can your insurance help you with any help or assistance. We'll then have an opportunity to hear from Ali from HR from Health, who will be discussing options employees and employers have. And then we'll hear from Stephen Bick, Carrie Strain, and Brady Frank. And then we'll open it up to some questions and answers. So there are a couple ways, again, you can ask questions. There is a chat feature if you're in the app that you can open up, and we can see questions as you type questions. Or when we prompt you to ask questions, please you can unmute yourself and ask questions that way as well. And then we'll do our best to just make sure everyone's muted to limit the background noise so that we can all hear and get the most value out of this as we possibly can. All right. So Brody and Chris, if you want to unmute yourselves and chime in so we know everyone can hear you.
Yep, Brody's here.
All right, thanks, Brody. And Chris Tate, let us know when you're in. So while Chris is unmuting himself, one of the benefits that our clients have is you have the benefit of a team. This is something we discuss when you first become a client. It's something all of our clients experience as we have our progress meetings. But I do think there's no better time than now to realize the power and the importance of having a team of truly some of the best subject matter experts in our industry, that have your back. We have been spending, as I know you have too, sleepless nights, countless hours discussing, meeting as a team, planning, trying to stay on top of the latest news so that for our clients, can make sure that we are providing you with the most accurate, most up-to-date news and options. We just had a progress meeting with a client, just before getting on this. And, as a team, we feel we're very optimistic about the ultimate outcome for this. Again, we plan for these types of corrections. So Brody, Brody, do you want to talk a little bit when we're putting these numbers together and the actual plan and strategies in place for clients? What variables you take into consideration and we plan for clients?
Sure. So there's a few reports that, a lot of you guys have seen that we kind of make sure we update at least every meeting. One of the important ones that's relevant for now is the cash reserves plan. So typically we're trying to look at clients' expenses and recommending that they keep at least 6 months of expenses in a safe, liquid place. So, in a time like this, maybe your business gets disrupted and you're worried about making paying your bills and paying your mortgage and everything like that. That'd be the first place to turn. As far as income disruptions go, first we'd recommend people kind of gobbling up any excess cash that you might have accumulated, then turning to your emergency fund. And then I know Jonathan's looking into banks to talk about like loan modifications that can help out cash flow and line of credits as well. So, again, always trying to kind of plan for unexpected events, whether it's a veterinary bill or the coronavirus. Generally we're recommending that clients keep a certain amount of cash safe and available. Another thing that we look at quite often a lot is clients' debts, and you're looking for opportunities to maybe refi or what should be paid off or what may not. And now is a pretty good time to refi, right? I mean, interest rates are historically low. One of the big obstacles that Chris Tate was just talking about, though, is it can be tough maybe to get a refi because a lot of the lenders are kind of swamped. But in general, 30-year mortgages, they kind of move with the 10-year treasuries. And as investors are seeking safety, they're buying bonds, pushing bond prices up, pushing the yields down, and mortgages are looking pretty good right now. Another area that we cover quite frequently is analyzing clients' goals. So in uncertain times like this, often we'll recommend that clients consider maybe deferring any big goals that they have that aren't a necessity. Maybe you're going to take a big trip. Well, I guess you probably wouldn't take a big trip right now, but a big house project, things like that. We're always kind of looking at it and saying, well, does it make sense, or any course corrections recommended? Another area that we talk about is we always run retirement projections, right? And one of the things we're looking at, we're not just looking at, are you going to have enough money that, by the time you pass, you'll have $1 left, right? We're trying to look at it and make sure that you have enough money that there can be a cushion to weather market ups and downs. So, when you guys turn on and see the news and look at the S&P crashing and bouncing and crashing and bouncing, it's important to remember that we've been here before, right? We all went through it in 2008 and before that. So I think it's important to kind of keep calm and keep the ship steady. And I wouldn't do anything too drastic when it comes to retirement planning. There's always a bit of a safety built into just general asset allocation as well, right? So supposing you're in retirement, you have a 60-40 allocation, 60% aggressive, 40% pretty safe, stocks and bonds. If you're taking a 4% withdrawal out every year, which is just a general safe amount, you've got 10 years of withdrawals locked up in safe money. So typically recessions don't last that long. I think 2008 was like a year and a half or something like that before it started bouncing back. The average length of recession is less than a year. So it's important to know that this isn't going to last forever. You already see cases kind of tapering off in China, and the markets are going to bounce back. So I would kind of keep calm about that. I know Chris has some more he's going to chime in again about different opportunities that we can do, like tax loss harvesting, maybe some Roth conversions and stuff like that to take advantage of the markets. And really the final element that just kind of built into the system, I think, is just the multiple meeting process and then being available in between meetings. So, as clients have any kind of issues or specific questions like, should I do this? Should I sell stock? Should I make this purchase? What am I going to do to cover cash? Have you guys heard anything about the stimulus or what the government's going to do, or specifically for dentists? Jonathan and the team is always available for that.
Yeah, thanks, Brody. Again, it is one of the reasons we have why we meet as frequently as we do with you guys, with our clients. We know that the world is ever changing. We know that your life is ever changing. We obviously, again, don't know, no one can predict what's going on now, but we do know that change happens. And it's why we meet frequently. So like Brody said, for a lot of you, we have upcoming progress meetings here in the next couple of weeks. If we don't, and you'd like to meet, hopefully everyone knows, by now, this is an opportunity. We're available. We're available to have impromptu meetings, talk about specifics and things like Brody talked about. Chris, do you want to add some points that we were talking about and discussing earlier as well?
Sure. Thanks, Brody. You covered nearly everything I wanted to say, and you did a great job. So thank you for that. I would just echo that it's times like these bear markets, these corrections, these times of seeming crisis that great wealth is preserved or created or lost, all depending on what your reaction is and how you weather the storm. Obviously, human nature is to do something, to take some action right now. And in my experience, and I think everybody on the call would agree, the worst thing to do would be to panic out and sell into this falling market in what appears to be a very, very low spot in the equity markets. This is a great reminder as to why we recommend having some alternative assets in your portfolio, something that is not super closely tied to the equity markets, things that should trade a little bit uncorrelated to what the stock market's doing, such as real estate assets and private equity investments, things that zig when the rest of the market's zagging. The key really in times like these is to control what you can control. Try not to get too glued to the financial news. It's only going to make you depressed and sad. But you can't control your emotions and your reactions. And look to the future. Look to where things will be 5 or 10 years from now, and ask yourself, if you're picturing yourself 5 years in the future, will you think, "Wow, I'm really glad I just turned off CNBC and just rode that out," or will you think, "Oh, wow, I really should have held on through that downturn"? As Brody alluded to, we've been through this before, the dot-com bubble bursting, 9/11 and the aftermath with the sell-off in the market, the economic slowdown. 2008, 2009 are still really fresh on a lot of investors' minds, and we remember how bad it was, but we tend to forget how quickly it recovered. So,
Right.
I mentioned this earlier to the team. When we do come out on the other side of this thing, and I am 100% confident we will, I suspect that you'll see the market's recovery very closely correlated to the number of recoveries from COVID-19 cases. And it will be almost a day-by-day thing where, when the number of new infections starts to decline and the number of recovery cases starts to increase, we'll see the market react almost immediately in a positive way. That's not to say we're not going into a significant recession or significant economic slowdown, but it's not the end of the world. Recessions, as Brody said, don't last forever. They're recessions. They're like recess. It's a little pause, but not the end of capitalism. And sometimes I think the media tends to overhype things and hyperventilate a little bit on what's going to happen next, or where are we going with this? And it's important to take a step back and think about the reality here. And this isn't the end of the world. This isn't the end of capitalism. Businesses are not going to all vanish and go away. There's still a very strong underlying economy, albeit wounded and damaged, but it's not the end of the U.S. economy, the global economy. A few action items you can take right now that will help you financially. Probably the most important one right now at this point in time is to do some tax loss harvesting, which is basically where you're just making moves within your portfolio where you have positions that have some unrealized capital losses. You can sell those and simply take the proceeds and move it directly into a similar asset class. So, for instance, if you had a large cap value mutual fund or ETF in your portfolio that's got a loss of $20,000, you can sell that and just move it into a different large cap value fund. So you're still in the market. You're not selling out of the market at the bottom. You're just simply making a lateral move, but you're able to capture that or harvest that loss that previously was unrealized and realize it. For tax purposes, that counts as a capital loss and can directly offset future capital gains. Most people are going to be in the 20% plus capital gains rate. So every dollar of loss you harvest, you're able to save 20 cents in taxes. So that can add up really quickly. Also, Roth IRA conversions, if your tax circumstances and your income are in a circumstance where it is appropriate, this is a good time to do that, to convert IRA assets into Roth IRA assets while they're at depressed levels. You're able to convert more. Also, funding 529s and retirement plans. Now is the time to do that when if you have cash available and have sufficient cash reserves, now is the time to shift money into those retirement plans. Also, especially beneficial for 529s and college funding plans. And then also gifting, if you're in a situation where you are potentially looking at some estate tax, now is the time that you can gift some assets to children or family members, up to $15,000 per year per person. Gift them while they're low, with the idea that they will come back at some point. So That's essentially all I have. Jonathan, if you want to take it back, I'll answer any questions.
All right, great. For right now, we're going to skip questions, Chris. I know Josh and Carl from the SBA only have limited time before they have to hop on, and I want to make sure they have some time. So Josh and Carl, please go ahead and talk. Can you let us know what's happening with I know there was an announcement today from the Treasury Secretary about making $1 trillion available for small businesses. What's the SBA doing, and what options do our clients have to tap into SBA funding in the event that they need to pay bills and keep their businesses afloat during this? So Josh and Carl, you may need to unmute yourselves.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Carl? Hi, Carl.
All right, great. Yeah. Hi. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah. I will have Josh stay on after I go over a few things. I do have to jump off to get on one of our executive calls we're all scrambling at this time, so make sure we're available for our clients. But I'll give you a brief overview of what the SBA is offering. So they've made available funds once President Trump announced the national emergency. Now, to access these funds, your state has to be declared a disaster area. They have to apply for that. You can check on that, and I'll have Josh send Jonathan. I'll have him send you the link for your client to click on, check to see if their county or state has applied and it has been approved as a disaster zone. Most of California is already designated as a disaster zone, so for those of you in California, that's covered. I believe Washington, Utah, New Mexico, all those states are already listed on the site. What that means now, you have available to you those disaster relief funds. So per individual, you have $2 million worth of SBA funds you can access. These are low interest rate loans, long term. I believe it's 30 years at 3.75% interest rates. First year's completely interest only. So these are funds to help you weather the storm. Keep in mind, you're not getting $2 million right off the bat. You're going to have to show what you need to cover your expenses to get through this, and they'll approve you based on what your needs are. What I recommend, and what I'm jumping off on this call, you go to your lenders that you're currently working with. They will afford you. I know what we're doing anywhere from 3 to 6 months full deferments on all our borrowers. So they have one less thing to worry about. Some of our borrowers obviously will still have rent obligations, payroll obligations, and we're offering them direct lines of credit. So they'll have access to those funds immediately rather than waiting to go through the SBA process. The SBA process is going to take about 4 weeks to get these disaster funds into your hands. So if you think you're going to need it, apply now. Go onto the SBA site and apply now. These are funds that are made available directly through the SBA and not through your bank. But if you need help navigating through that, you're more than welcome to reach out to Josh, and he'll let you know how to work through the process and what steps you'll need to take.
Carl, can you give us the website that clients can click on to find out if their state has declared that disaster to make them qualify for these funds?
Absolutely. Let me pull it up and all.
Jonathan, this is Josh. I just sent you 2 documents. One is an estimated disaster injury worksheet needs to be completed that Carl was referring to that shows there's going to be an economic loss. The other one is a handout, but the website to go to is sba.gov/disaster. That takes you to the landing page. This is a completely electronic process. But if you click on apply for assistance on that website, there's eligible disaster areas, little section. Somebody can click on that and it tells you all the counties and all the states that have been approved as declared a disaster area. So it's all on sba.gov/disaster. and it gets updated every, it seems like 30 seconds. And so it's pretty quick moving, but I sent those documents to you. You can send those out to all the attendees along with my contact info. If they need help filling out some of this stuff or kind of walk through, you can, it's pretty, it's engaging website. Also your local CDC is could play a key role in getting some of these disaster funds into some of your clients' hands.
Great. Yeah, we will forward those materials to all of our clients. That will forward those. So all of our clients on this call, you'll get that email from us with that information. Anyone else on this call, please reach out to. And thank you. Looks like Jacob just uploaded a link in the chat box too. So hopefully everyone's joined, not just dialing in, but through the actual app. You should see that in the chat. If you say click on the chat box, you should see the link in there as well. But we'll make all these available to everyone on this call after this call as well. So real quick, so how does it work? So Carl, it sounds like, and what we've read and seen is, initially, do the clients need to go to their existing and current banks first, and then if the bank turns them down or doesn't have any options, then they can turn to the SBA at that time? Or can they just go directly to the SBA regardless of what their bank will or won't do?
They can go directly to the SBA. They don't have to wait for the bank. They don't have to deal with the bank if they choose not to. It's my recommendation. It's just because it takes a little longer. Most banks should be, I shouldn't speak for them, but should be available to work with their clients to make sure they don't put them in more hardship than necessary. So I always recommend go to your bank, get the deferment while you're working on getting your disaster funds. It should put your mind at ease, because your banker should be able to help you through the process, but you don't have to do that. And go to the SBA, apply for that loan, then go to your bank and tell them you're waiting for these disaster funds. Give me a deferment, and they should be more than willing to assist you with that.
Okay, great. David Prince had a question. Do you recommend applying either way? It sounds like, Carl, the answer to that question is yes, is what it sounds like. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's two things going. One, apply for the disaster relief, even if you don't anticipate needing it, but it's going to be there just in case of, that this thing drags out a little bit longer than normal. So that's step one, is to apply there. Step two is I would start working. What Carl and I have done with our clients is we divvied up the portfolio last Friday. So Monday morning, we were on the phone call with a lot of our clients saying, what can we do to help? Do you need additional lines of credit outside of the disaster fund that we could help you out with? Do you need interest only for the next 12 months? Just depending on what their needs are. We were reaching out to them. We're not, we weren't reactive to this. We kind of anticipated some of, initiating the conversation with a lot of our clients. And whether you guys are existing customers, bank clients, or you're with B of A Wells, I would engage with your banker as soon as possible to see what the bank can do for you. So you're not, we're not waiting until the 11th hour and it's already a little bit too late. Get the funds kind of in your hands from the government if need be, or start working with your bank to start seeing what they're going to be able to do for you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And all of our clients know, we sent an email out yesterday, and just as a reminder, for all of our clients, we actually started reaching out proactively to all of our clients' banks first thing Monday morning. And most of you should have already received an email from Joanne. If you haven't, that email is coming today with who we spoke with, what your specific bank's action plan is. And we've also asked about lines of credit. So we're doing a lot of that groundwork on behalf of our clients, and we will continue to follow up. I do want to just, pat you guys on the back, Carl and Josh, because I can tell you of all the banks we've talked to, there's only a handful of banks that have been as proactive and on top of it as Customers Bank has been. And so, I think that's really great. A couple questions that have come in from Dr. Hong. You asked, do you recommend applying for both SBA and line of credit from your personal bank?
For me, yes. Because,
okay. Yes.
like I said earlier, it's going to take some time for those funds from the SBA to become available, and the line of credit will bridge that gap for you. One other thing I want to add, I just thought of. If you go to that website and you notice that where your practice is, where your business is, isn't listed as a disaster zone, you can reach out to Josh. He'll give you the paperwork. Go ahead, and there's a form that you'll fill out. That'll help your local SBA district office apply to have that state or that county listed as a disaster area. They need businesses to reach out to them. They need businesses to claim that they're struggling for them to know to apply for a disaster. Some states are being proactive. California, Utah, Philadelphia, as a city, that they did all this work ahead of time, but other states haven't really gotten into it. So reach out to your local SBA office, submit the forms necessary to have if you're not listed as a disaster area, to have your area listed as such. It's a quick process. They've streamlined it from what it was before, so it shouldn't take that long to have that area listed as a disaster zone.
Thank you, Carl. I don't know if you can see the questions, but that was actually the next question. So Matthew, hopefully that answers your question. It was, what if our county hasn't been declared a disaster yet? So it sounds like fill out that form, submit it, and encourage them to do that. Carl, I know you have to hop off into a conference call. Any other thoughts, comments that you'd like to make before you have to go?
Yeah, I'm going to jump off right now, but Josh will be on to take on any questions. But anything you guys can think of, any concerns you have, the theme is reach out, discuss it. Don't dwell on it on your own, because we're all in this together. We're going to work through it and get out of it together. So just share your thoughts and questions and concerns, and we'll find a solution for it.
Great. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you.
All right, Josh, anything you would like to add before, and then I'll open it up. If anyone else has any questions, if you'd like to, specifically for Josh or the SBA, you can either type those into the comments as people have been doing, that's great. Or if you'd like to unmute your phone and ask a question, we'll pause for about 20 seconds to see if anyone has any additional questions before we move on. All right. If you do have questions, please unmute yourself or feel free to chat and submit those questions. Josh, anything else you'd like to add? I do have Josh's contact information up on the screen. Again, we will be sharing this. If you'd like a copy of the recording or we'll be sending out an email with everyone's contact information who's participating in here as well. Again, I'll echo what Carl says multiple times today. You're not alone. We have an amazing team and a huge amount of resources for all of you to get through this together. So thank you, Carl and Josh, for all you guys are doing. And again, the proactive nature of what you're doing in the bank as well, it has been great. Are you good, Josh? We'll go ahead and keep moving.
Yeah, no, I'm good. It's a bulky process that's continuing to evolve, that Carl and I are keeping our eye on. So like I said, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, there's my contact information. Would love to help in any way that I can. Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. If you could mute yourself, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Rob and Tierney, do we have you on the line?
Yep.
All right. Great. And Rob, are you here as well?
I'm here. Yep.
All right. Rob, we're having a little bit of hard time hearing you. If you want to either turn up your volume or maybe switch to a headset. So Rob and Tierney, I know we had a conversation yesterday as a team. I know you guys are getting inundated with clients as far as, what options do clients have, if any, through their existing insurance policies or coverages, and what are you guys seeing and what are you suggesting?
Well, let me ask you first, John, hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Okay. So Tierney and I collaborated on this, and she'll definitely jump in if I'm out in, but tell that the biggest concern that we've seen centers around just loss action as our clients have had to either shut down or just significantly reduce the number of patients seen. And what do we do about that? The most Well, and I want to address that, but also there's a couple other items that need to be considered as well. But the most common question that we're getting, and collectively here at our office, I mean, we might have over the last few days fielded this question 40 to 50 times, is from clients specifically. The question is, will my business overhead policy provide coverage in the event that I need to shut down? And so I want to make sure I address that. A business overhead policy is part of the disability insurance family. And what it provides is a benefit to be used towards overhead expenses or covered expenses, such as your payroll, minus a doctor's salary, rent or mortgage, utilities. But the key here is that the trigger is that the doctor, the dentist, is first disabled. And that's the same as your disability policy. So just to be clear on that, if you own a business and have a business overhead expense policy, which a lot of our business owners do have, the only way that a business overhead policy is going to pay is if you actually have the coronavirus. And as a result of that, if you were to miss time, enough time to satisfy the elimination period and then have benefits kick in. If you simply are just ordered or choose to shut down your office and are not sick, are not disabled, then the overhead expense policy itself will not provide coverage. So moving into your business insurance, again, if you own a business, you would have what's called a business owner's policy. And this actually incorporates a lot of different coverages. Mainly, a business owner's policy covers general liability, like if someone were to slip and fall on your property, and then business property. And under this policy, so this policy will provide coverage for loss of income and extra expense. Often this is called business interruption, but this is typically designed to cover losses due to property damage as a result of such things as a fire, flood, hurricane, tornado, etc. And in general, these policies don't provide coverage for something like the spread of a contagious disease like coronavirus. However, we're not in a position, we nor the policyholders, to determine that it's an open and shut deal, that if you have a business owner policy, that it's just automatically not going to cover you because of a coronavirus shutdown. Claims are handled on a case-by-case basis. And so we're advising all of our clients who have a business owner policy, which if you own a business, I think everyone just has one, whether you think so or not. We're encouraging our clients to all file a claim because, again, it's handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's likely that there would be some type of coverage available. Maybe not to equal the actual income loss, but you definitely want to get with the insurance company, and we're actually advising clients to do that even ahead of time. We have clients who have not yet shut down who are looking at tomorrow or next week, and we're having them call the claims department now ahead of time just to kind of be ahead of the game and know what kind of documentation or information they're going to have to provide to prove income loss. And so with that, I think as a common and general practice, you should all be keeping detailed financial records as it is. But if you were to file a claim, as you can imagine, and were to get any type of compensation, you'd have to show proof of financial loss. And you'd also just want to be careful about and have detailed information about what your company's doing to prevent the spread of the virus. And what I also wanted to talk about is, as I mentioned at first, the biggest concern is what's going to happen when we shut down. We're going to have lost production, lost income. But a couple other items that you want to focus on as well is if you still have your office open, if you're going to choose to continue to practice, whether that's to see your full patient load or just emergencies only, there is the possibility that one of your employees becomes infected, and there's a chance that they could prove that they got the virus from the office, from a coworker, a patient, or even maybe you. And if that's the case, then you have a workers' compensation policy, and your employee would have coverage through workers' compensation in that instance. There's also the possibility that one of your patients coming in could contract the virus, and they could trace that maybe back to your office, and they would have coverage. They would file a claim through your office, your general liability policy, which again is part of the business owner policy. So we can't stress and urge enough that if you're continuing to keep the office open, that you really have to have tight procedures in place. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she's in Georgia, and she just she's getting the memos and the message from the Georgia Dental Association and the ADA about seeing emergency patients only, and she's in this quick shift of shifting her practice to cover emergency patients only, but that still means she's having patients come in, and she has really tight procedures. She's taking and recording the temperature of each of her employees that come in every day, and they have really strict patient procedures of what they require from the patient and those who are accompanying the patients to the office, washing of the hands, of cleaning up the operatories. And because that is a risk that you run. Not only, the obvious is that if you're going to be seeing emergency patients only, if you're letting go of hygiene for the next 2-3 weeks and beyond, obviously you're going to have a loss of production there. But again, if the office is open, then that's the risk you run as well. As who knows who has that virus coming in, whether that's an employee or a patient or you, and you've got to make sure that you tighten up your procedures, and you can't be in this environment, in this situation, you can't be too detailed about all of that in case there is a claim filed. Again, whether that's going to be for you trying to get business interruption coverage of some sort, or one of your employees filing a workers' compensation claim, or one of your patients filing a claim under the general liability.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Tierney, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just to piggyback off of what Rob said, we're encouraging our clients to all file any of the claims and letting the insurance companies really determine whether or not there's coverage, especially for loss of business income. And what we're finding, we're keeping track of this, and we represent a plethora of different insurance companies, and we've only received one flat out declination. All of the insurance carriers are really doing their due diligence and research per each claim to really determine whether or not there's coverage. So definitely encourage you all to speak to your agents and let them know what's going on in your business.
Thanks, Tierney. Thanks, Rob. So for our clients, as all of you know, Rob and Tierney are both team members on our team, and they're looking at your insurance policies every couple of months, every time we have a meeting. If you need any assistance in this process, again, we're here to help you get through this. And Rob and Tierney, you're available for questions if clients have specific questions as to how to submit these claims or possibly even help with that. Are you guys available?
Yeah,
Of course,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any? I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat box from anyone specific to insurance. I think Rob and Tierney did a very thorough job covering all the options. This is a question we've been getting a lot from clients, so thank you for addressing those. If anyone does have a question and you want to unmute yourself, please feel free. Otherwise, we'll move on to Ali to talk about HR, what options our employees have, and as employers, what options do we have and should we be looking out for?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. Obviously HR and what you do with your team and the office right now is crucial because it's a very scary time, not just because of the virus and people being worried about being infected, but people are worried about their incomes, they're worried about their home mortgages, they're worried about a lot of things. And we've been answering a lot of calls over the last few days with these real serious fears. And so I'm just going to go through, I think, a couple of things that are the most common questions we're getting right now. One is, can my employees get unemployment if I close my office, or do I have to fire them all? I'm going to unpack that in a couple of ways. One is, the short answer is yes, your employees can get unemployment without you having to fire all of them. Just the fact that the office is closed due to the ADA recommendations, the CDA recommendations, or any other locality regulation or act that may have been passed, then they can immediately file for unemployment with your state and be able to get something for it. It can be anywhere from 30 to 60% of their lost income is what we're seeing. Do I have to pay for my salaried employees if they don't do any work? The short answer to that is no. If you have salaried employees and they do not do any work for you, you do not need to pay them. Typically, if someone has worked any part of 1 week, unless you follow some very specific rules starting next week, I would say you do not have to pay them. If they worked a few days this week already, or are providing any sort of services, then our recommendation is that you pay them for the week. But then, if the office is closed next week, just let the team know, and you don't have to pay salaried employees. Hourly employees do not need to get paid if they're not working. One common offshoot of this that I get is, can I have my team work from home? And if they do work from home, can I adjust their pay to something other than what they were earning in my office? So you can definitely have employees work from home if it's things that they can do from home. Insurance billing, calling patients, reappointing, anything of that nature, you can. If you're going to pay someone to do work from home that they would have done in the office, let's say like an insurance coordinator or whatnot, then their pay should remain the same. But if you are going to have, let's say, a hygienist, as an example, work from home making phone calls, then you can change her pay to something that's more in line with an employee who's working from home making phone calls or doing insurance work or whatnot. That person would have to agree to that new rate, so I would make sure it's all in writing. So that's an important aspect of that if people are going to have anybody kind of working outside of the office. From emergency situations, if you are going to go into the office to see an emergency and you need an assistant, you can reach out to your team and ask. I would first ask for any volunteers to see if anybody wants to come in to help you see that patient. If people are refusing to come into work, then you may want to try to see that patient without an assistant, or if you don't feel comfortable, then refer them to another office where they could potentially be seen. I definitely would not recommend terminating any employees right now. I know it seems like it's something that would make sense to do, but I think in terms of morale and whatnot, it would definitely be disadvantage to you to do that. We do see some things coming down the pipe from the federal government. There has been nothing that has been actually passed yet, so it's unclear what the rules will be because both parties are negotiating. But what we believe will happen is that all employers that have 500 or less employees will have to provide some sort of mandated paid time off or sick leave. With that said, we believe that employers with 50 or less employees will be exempt from that. but that is not a sure thing, as the parties are debating that as we speak. The previous speakers who were speaking regarding the SBA emergency loans, I think it is a very real thing that may become necessary if that 50 or less employee exemption is not in the final bill that gets passed and becomes law. The parties are, the Democrats are fighting not to have it in there. The Republicans are fighting to have it in there. And we are, there's a lot of debate going on. So it's unclear right now what's going to happen. But we know from a cash flow perspective, we've had very difficult conversations with clients who are very concerned about their own home mortgages. They're worried about their rent, their bank loans, everything else. And they're very worried about cash flow if they have to provide for weeks upon potentially months of sick leave to patients. I'm sorry, not to patients, to employees. So, but that is not law yet. So we're just kind of waiting to see what happens there. We've gotten questions regarding health insurance as well. We do recommend that employers right now pay for both sides of the health insurance, even though the employees may not be working. It is a strain on cash flow, we understand, but the rules, the laws, protect employees in this regard. And the last thing we want is for employees to lose their health benefits and then suddenly suffer from the virus or some other health issues and then not have health insurance. So we absolutely recommend that. In terms of patients that are 65 and above, if you have been around the virus, have the virus, know somebody who's had it that you've been in contact with, we highly recommend that you not see any patients that are older than 65 years old under almost any circumstance. If it's an emergency situation, I think sending them to either the ER or taking precautions where maybe you are seeing them yourself if you have not been surrounded by the virus or are a threat of having it, then I would say go ahead and see that patient, but maybe try to do it without an assistant. The reason is because of the health concern that's related to them and the high potential for death related to those specific patients. We're very, very worried about the legal liabilities of those patients getting it from your office or from you. We have had several dental distributors and vendors, employees be diagnosed with the coronavirus, and they've visited offices while they were infected. Not unknowing, but they tested positive later, but they did visit offices. In those situations, we are recommending that you notify all the patients that were seen that day. We do have some sample letters. Jonathan, I don't know if Jill sent this to you or not, but if anybody on this call wants to email us at compliance@hrforhealth.com, and that's compliance@hrforhealth.com, we will get you some sample letters to send to patients and your team regarding what they can do about unemployment and what they can do about emergency care and other things. So if you guys email us, let us know what you're looking for and we'll get that to you. So Jonathan, I don't see any, I can't see from my computer any questions, but if there are any, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, there are quite a few questions, and thanks, Ali. If you can see my screen, Ali's that email address is on the screen right there as well. Yes, quite a few questions, as I suspected there would be. One of the questions is, we have, as just similar to you, Ali, we have clients all over the country, and everyone's kind of going. We have clients in New York and on the East Coast. We have clients in Washington and California. So some of our clients are in various stages of this, right? As I'm sure yours are as well.
Yes.
What if a doctor has already laid off employees, thinking that's what they needed to do to have them qualify? What needs to happen, if anything, once this passes and those employees come back in? Is there any sort of formality that needs to happen to hire them back, or what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have fired an employee already and you've actually gone through the entire process, final paycheck, final termination documents. You've done everything with regard to it. The employee, is fired as far as the law is concerned. Then you would have to rehire them back and get all the new hire documents signed again, and have them sign the employment manual again, and all the normal things you would do for a normal hire. On average, around the country, there are 12 to 18 documents that every employee needs to have. So we would strongly urge you, if you're not on HR for Health, to jump on HR for Health and make sure you're doing everything correctly. This is this is the reason why HR is so vital, is for times like this. But if you're going to have to hire them back, just remember that you got to pretend like they're a new employee for in all regards. Okay. So yeah, and something tied to that, Jonathan. I see the questions now in the chat box here. I don't know why there was a delay earlier. Another question I see here tied to that is unemployment rate. We always, even before the virus, have always recommended our clients never to worry about their unemployment rate, never to worry about letting an former employee get unemployment. That still applies right now. Here's the reason why. The unemployment rate in almost all states is tied not only to what happens in your specific office, but also to the unemployment rate of the entire state. And so everyone's rates will go up naturally because of what's about to happen with all the unemployment claims. And then almost every state, I should say, has a maximum for unemployment that an employer pays for an employee. So based on what we've seen from CPAs around the country, the average increase, assuming you go from the best rate to the absolute worst rate, is about $360 per employee that you would pay more every year. So it's an inconsequential amount when you think about what benefit they get by filing for unemployment. So.
And I know I'm asking you to kind of make a prediction here, so no one will hold you to this, but do you foresee, some sort of a federal relief, so that rate increase doesn't happen given the circumstances, or, what's your best guess as far as how the government will react to maybe subside, maybe make sure that's not such a big impact on business owners?
Yeah, well, the federal government is going to have some relief if they pass the. There's two sides of that to that question. One is the federal government is going to have some tax relief, some tax credits for employers if they pass this Families First Coronavirus Act, and if they force employers to give sick leave and pay time off to employees. But it's not going to necessarily help with cash flow issues that businesses are going to have in the immediate few weeks and months, because the tax credits are going to be provided more long term. From a state level, we don't necessarily think there's going to be any sort of assistance in terms of the unemployment tax rate. It's just going to what we think is going to happen is that that's going to remain as is, so that the fund can get paid. But just as it happened in 2008 and 2009, everyone's going to pay a higher tax rate for many years. And then as employment kind of comes back and the economy gets back on its feet, then those rates start to fall. But again, it's a small cost and a soft cost, meaning you're not going to be paying necessarily more directly out of your pocket for unemployment. Your rate is just going to potentially go up slightly, but it's going to go up regardless because of what I was mentioning in terms of the state.
Yeah, very informative. Thanks. So hopefully, Tom, that answered your question. Kristen, did we have team members sign a waiver if they do come in?
You can, yeah. Patients and employees can sign a waiver. We don't think it's going to necessarily have any real legal effect. At the end of the day, the real liability is going to be on the decision of you seeing a patient if you have the virus or if you think you've been around the virus. So you just have to kind of be aware. I went to an event a couple of weeks ago, and a few days after the event, it was a large conference. One of the speakers, notified everybody that they had been they had tested positive for the virus. So everybody, went under quarantine, all, 200 doctors that were present at that meeting. It's that kind of level of activity that you have to do to protect yourself. So thankfully nobody else apparently, tested positive, but you can do the waiver, but it's not going to have much legal effect. I think it's just more about using common sense. So.
Okay. So Kristen and Brian Marino, hopefully that answers that question. T had a question. Can I have staff go in to do administrative work, not seeing patients, instead of working from home?
Yes, you can have them. If you're not in a county or a state that is under lockdown more or less right now, then yes, you can definitely do that. I would recommend that you keep the number of employees in the office at less than 10, and also make sure that they are working at least 6 feet apart, based on some of the federal guidelines that are coming down. But other than that, yes, you can have them go in versus working from home.
Okay. And then D had a question. We have an office in Arizona where they are not allowing employees to apply for unemployment until after the last day of work. Do you know if that is an accurate statement? And then I know California is allowing to apply for reduced hours.
Yeah, California definitely allows for reduced hours. Most states allow for reduced hours. Because things are rapidly changing and the states are being bombarded with unemployment claims, it doesn't surprise me that Arizona and maybe some other states get to the point where they require unemployment applications to be filed after the last day of work. What I would say is, if your office is closed, have them file immediately anyways, and put that date down. If you're gonna have them work from home, obviously that will push that date back a little bit. But state by state, I think these rules are changing very rapidly.
Okay, and then as employees of our own offices, should we apply for unemployment, and our spouses too?
So the answer to that is yes, but unemployment agencies around the country typically, historically, have a very kind of skeptical eye towards owners filing for unemployment. So what I would recommend is, in order to avoid being a victim or being audited for unemployment insurance fraud, I would say answer every question as honestly as you can without going into any gray areas. Make sure that you are absolutely being honest and that you can back up everything that you are claiming, because in times of emergency like this, what happens is that these kinds of audits end up occurring. It just occurs a couple of years later, but you don't want to be a victim of that. But technically speaking, you can absolutely file for unemployment.
You're saying just make sure you follow all the steps and fill out everything as accurately as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you want to be more truthful than you've ever been in your whole life.
Fair enough. Last question, and I apologize. I guess my mouse was drawing some lines on your photo, on your headshot there, so I apologize about that. If someone tests positive after you notify the patients, from that day, are you recommending closing the office for any period of time?
Well, there's no necessarily guidelines for that yet that we've seen. I think if from a cleanse perspective, if you wipe everything down, if you from an infection control perspective, if you're doing all the right things at that point, you could potentially open up again. There was a recent notification, I think, by the CDC, either late last night or early this morning, basically saying that they've uncovered that the coronavirus also can exist in the air for a period of time. So what I would say is, just out of precaution, if you wanted to close for 24, 48 hours, something of that nature, until and then reopen, it's probably not a bad idea. After you kind of wipe everything down to make sure you're cleansing the office. But what I'm more worried about, because we're seeing this a little bit in the Bay Area, is we've got some doctors who are not abiding by the shelter-in-place rules and keeping their doors open because of they consider themselves essential practices, and they're being really hammered hard on social media. In one instance, a county is about to close down an orthodontist. I mean, it's turning into more of a marketing PR problem as well. So I would kind of keep that in mind when trying to figure out when to open or close.
Great point. Another thing, just real quick, I was on the webinar, on Carrie Strange webinar last night, and something that was brought up there, and it was a comment made here, is the individual said there may be some legal ramifications if you are taking the temperature of your employees. And their recommendation was do not take the temperature of your employees. Do you have any thoughts, or what are your thoughts around that?
I think a lot of the typical rules, I mean, on a normal basis, 3 months ago, I would say, yes, do not take the temperature of your employees. It's a privacy issue, but right now, I would say, if you want to be overly safe, I would take it. I would take it of everybody that's walking into your office to make sure there's not even a slight temperature. And I think considering what we're fighting against, that's reasonable. And from a legal perspective, I think it can be defended that you're not violating anyone's privacy. Randomly, you're doing it for the health and safety of the patients and the population. So I think 3 months ago, yes. Today, I think it's a whole different conversation.
Okay. Last question, and then we'll move on. The question is, I'm in Sacramento County, so under they're under that provision you were just talking about. The CDA guidelines says dentists are exempt and can use discretion on treating. So I'm confused what that means. It sounds like it might be best to shut down.
So yes, it is best to shut down. A couple of things. So the CDA recommendation, which is what it was, they don't have legal authority to shut you down. Theirs was a very strong recommendation, which I think everyone should abide by because of the transmission of the virus through aerosol. And dentistry, despite what you've seen from some folks out there, this is very different than hepatitis, very different than HIV, very different than the common flu. It's spread much more easily through aerosol than any of those other things. And so as a result of that, the CDA made the difficult decision to say shut down. The shelter in place that is in effect in the Bay Area counties, I'm not sure if it's in Sacramento County, but some cities like Davis in Yolo County are also under the same thing. That rule is applicable. That is more of a law. It's an order that all non-essential businesses close. Now, when they say essential, healthcare offices are considered essential. However, for dental, optometry, and vet, it's really for emergency services. So if you're an orthodontist, a start is probably not an emergency situation. So that wouldn't qualify. But if you have a patient in pain, yes, if their front tooth is chipped and they have, their gums are sore and they're in pain, yes, you can see that patient and be okay. But we wouldn't want you to do, hygiene and normal, cleanings and things of that nature that are not considered emergencies or must have services. So.
Okay, thanks. And Lee Addition, thanks, Lee. For those of you who don't know, Lee is her husband's a dentist in the LA area, and Lee runs the San Gabriel Dental Society. So she said CDA recommended 2 weeks strict closure. I think that's what you're saying there, Lee. And then ADA came out yesterday with a 3-week recommendation. So, I think all of us as business owners, we especially as dentists and clinicians, I know all of us in knowing our clients, care first and foremost for the health of our patients and the health of our staff. And so you're going to have to really, as an owner, consider your options and what you feel is healthy or safe for your office and for your employees, and what you feel isn't, and have those conversations. We are here to support you. Ali, your contact information is there. I really appreciate you being on the call. I know this has been a big piece and a big question that a lot of clients have had. You're available for questions if clients want to reach out directly to you and support. I know your website has a ton of resources on it as well. Are you available and your team available for questions from these doctors?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our entire team is all, they're all working. They're all home because we're under the shelter in place rule as well. But everyone's home and working, and we're answering hundreds and hundreds of calls every day and emails. So whether you're an HR for Health customer or not, please, we're doing this as a service, no strings attached. So reach out to us directly, and we'll help you however we can. And if you email that email address, you will get some of those resources that I was mentioning. So
great. Thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate it. Very helpful, very informative.
Of course.
I know this is changing rapidly, so we'll look for updates from you guys as well, and we'll be sending those out to our Align Advisors clients.
Great. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
All right, Steve. Next, we're here from Steve Bick, and Steve's going to kind of talk us through as far as the overall economics. Steve has a very interesting background. Steve's background is he's been brought in with after Bear Stearns and Enron went through their big, very widely known downturn. Steve had a lot of experience in turning around companies, and so Steve has a very interesting outlook. What's interesting, and I think is hopefully refreshing to most of our clients, is that as a team we don't always agree on things, and that's what makes, when we meet and discuss prior to each client's meeting, that's what makes we feel our advice even more appropriate for our clients, because we don't all agree. And so Steve's going to share with us some of his background, from his thoughts. And from a turnaround person, having a ton of experience turning around companies, what his recommendation is for the dental practices. So, Steve, are you unmuted, and are we able to hear you? Let's see. I can't hear you. I'm looking for your name on the list.
Oh,
Steve, is that you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. All right.
Okay, great. Yes, thanks, Jonathan. Yes, a very varied background, and not one that I'd advise anyone to follow, just because every business I seem to look at seems to be in a bit of a state of a mess. But outside of that, it brings a lot of experience and advice for the clients that you have right now in their current level of angst. And so to me, in these types of environments, it's really an opportunity for you to act. If you want to go to my next slide, my first slide that I have here, I just find that one of the biggest fallacies is people just seem to sit and almost do the ostrich and put their head in the sand and hope it goes away. And obviously we all do. We all hope that this blows over in the next week or two. But what I'm going to chat about a little bit today is a little bit of a toolbox that you can use just to ensure that your business survives and hopefully thrives out the other side. So really, sitting idle and hoping that things will blow over is not the best thing you can do in this stage of your business life cycle. Obviously, this will apply differently to different businesses. Not every business is, say, living month to month and hoping to keep the doors open. A lot of you guys are very profitable and have large staff and large budgets and things of that nature, but then also with that comes large overheads. So I just want this to be a toolbox that you can use. You can pick and choose, but essentially your business is your future. So we want to make certain that this survives and hopefully thrives, because in every recession that we've been in, that's where there's a big transfer of wealth. There's opportunities exist for those that strengthen their business during the downturn and come out the other side with a lot stronger marketing presence and the ability to service the clients of the others that weren't as fortunate as you to survive this downturn. So the first thing, and obviously this is included with the SBA and the LOC options that we were listening to a little bit earlier, but cash is king. I mean, you have to just try and garner as much cash into your accounts as possible. And in the turnaround world, you try and accelerate your receivables and get payment on that. And then you slow down paying on your accounts payable. Now, obviously, there'll be critical accounts payable that you need to take care of, but you need to make a decision as to whether you need to pay them all. Can you sort of turn them into some kind of a credit card where you're paying less out the door, but paying everyone in full right now, particularly if you're hurting for cash, might not be the wisest decision to make. If there's a way you can even call your largest suppliers and just say, hey, this is what's going on. We're going to give you 30 cents now. We'll give you another 30 cents a month from now and the remaining 2 months from now. But keep supplying us with our necessary supplies and things of that nature. They'll often work with you just to maintain the business relationship. But try to accelerate those receivables and slow down on your payables. Some of you, however, might have a lot of cash already, and maybe you're doing a great job of collecting cash and it's sitting in the bank. And I'm not saying that we might be in the Armageddon that we saw in 08, 09, but with these types of situations, if this COVID shuts businesses down for longer than 2-3 weeks, and we see it start moving into a month or two, there's going to be a lot of fallout from this. There'll be like domino effect. People won't be paying their mortgages, they won't be paying their bills, they won't be paying their car payments, their credit cards, etc. And so you'll see a ripple effect, just like we did before. And so if you've got more than $250,000 sitting in a bank, I would use some of your downtime to shift that money to a separate bank, because you're only covered up to $250,000 by the FDIC, and I wouldn't want you to just risk that unnecessarily when you've got money just sitting there that's at risk of a bank closing. We don't know who they're exposed to. We don't know what their exposure is ultimately. So if things go really bad, there could be some bank closures. Once again, I'm not saying this will happen. I'm just alerting you guys this is an unnecessary risk when you've got more than $250,000 in one bank at the moment. If you don't want to go to the headache of opening up 2 or 3 different bank accounts, you could always invest in treasuries. I know Chris's team can definitely help you with that. But if you've got some excess cash and you want to do treasuries to get it out of banks, that's another way to go. And of course, I specialize in cash alternatives with my fixed rate deposits, and then also my income fund. For those of you, I think a number of you already invested in those. Those will continue to pay significantly above market rates of return. So there's always that if you're able to eke out into a longer duration than say 2-3 months. And of course, always talk to line advisors just to see how to implement a cash management system, because ultimately that's what we're talking. We're talking about protecting your cash. We're talking about making certain that you can survive as long as possible. We don't know if this is going to be 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months. And really, in every time I've done these turnarounds, it's just to make certain that you buy as much time as you can, because we really don't know how long it's going to be. So rather plan for a longer period of time and be surprised by a shorter period of time than plan for a shorter period of time and be taken unawares by a longer period of time. So if you want to flip to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So reduce overheads, and I know Ali's been mentioned some advice on this just recently, but trimming staff in this situation is optional and normally beneficial, particularly if there's some people that you were marginal to begin with. I know Ali said maybe you don't even have to lay them off. You can just put them to the side and not have to pay them. If that's the case, that might be a way to go to save on your insurance policies and all of the rest of it. But in all honesty, it's now the time to really look and see who are your core personnel. And one way to do that is just to review your sources of income. So you sit down with your accountants or line advisors. I think they do a lot of your guys' accounting, and just determine where your income and revenue is coming from, which sources of your practice, and make certain that you maintain those profitable areas and keep that core personnel around for when things come back. But any marginal or temporary unemployees, I would either stop paying or let go, and then next is to plan for a second round of potential layoffs if this goes beyond 30 to 60 days. So you just need to be planning. This is where you're acting. You're planning, you're getting prepared. And just in case this thing goes, 60 days and your cash flow is starting to dwindle, you need to plan for these things and make certain that when you come out the other side, you still have a business. So you can put your remaining people to work, as we've discussed. That always keeps morale up. I've discovered, obviously, over the years in doing these turnarounds, when you're laying people off, it does, to Ali's point, bring the morale down. But if you can say to your remaining core people that they're going to be kept on board, it keeps their morale up when you give them things to do, even if they don't necessarily have to go in. And I'm sure all of us, I run 5 businesses. There's always a list of things that we wish we could get to, like improving systems and procedures, cross-training your people to become more efficient. And really, if you can make a list of all these tasks and items that you need to get done, that you've always wanted to get done, this is a time to really get your people working instead of just sitting home idle, and it'll make you stronger when you come out the other side. Cut any unnecessary expenses. I know when times are good, we all build up a whole host of things we spend money on, whether it's the coffee machine or whether it's delivered water or whatever it might be, as minimal as that sounds, or excess travel or whatever it might be. But it's now time, when you're sitting at home, to go through those credit cards, itemize your expenses, sit down with Jonathan's team, look at every single line item, and really start cutting out the things that you don't need, so you come out the other side far more lean and mean than you are right now. I've also seen cases where some people just have way too much real estate. They've rented a space that's far too big. Maybe it's time to just look at that space, rejig things around, move things around, and possibly when things improve, there's an opportunity to look at maybe subletting that space out to somebody else to immediately bring your overheads down. Obviously, this low interest rate environment provides other types of opportunities. A lot of you guys are financing your equipment. Maybe there's a chance to refinance those at lower rates, or if you're looking at new equipment right now, everyone's hurting, everyone's struggling to try and find sales. If you are in a financially strong position, you could possibly negotiate lower prices on new equipment. There's obviously, you can also finance them at lower rates. Interest rates are essentially zero, so you might find that you can get really low rates on financing new equipment that you've always wanted, or that will help you when you come out the other side. And then finally, growing your business. This is the ideal chance to review your marketing strategies. So you need to ensure that they're in line with your specialties. And especially if you're going to lay certain people off or sideline certain parts of your practice after your review of what's profitable and what's not, then once you've determined your profit centers, you need to tailor that marketing towards what the new economy is going to offer you. And to me, the new economy, to Chris Tate's point, it's more than likely we're more than likely in a recession, and we're probably looking at a year or two to full recovery. But if we think about the current market environment, where loads of businesses, you think all the restaurants are shutting down, all of the sports arenas, everything's basically shut. And so all of these part-time people, these hourly employees are all laid off. So I would imagine that we're going to have seriously high unemployment coming out the other side. And with high employment, it takes a big bite in those people's ability to survive and to even pay rent, let alone pay their dental bills. So you might want to just see what sort of clientele you have and how you can prepare for that type of situation. Are you going to continue to take uninsured people? How are you going to make certain you get paid once the doors are open again and you're actually starting to service your clients? And then you can work on trying to create some form of a backlog of those specific clients that you would like to continue on into the future. So if we go to the next slide, and I'm going relatively quickly because I know we've all been on the call for over an hour or more, but I wanted to get through these. So if we look at a sort of a business and personal plan, I've been pounding on the table for a number of years that these low interest rates are here to stay, and obviously they are. We've had Europe, Japan, China, well, not China quite yet, but Japan and Europe certainly are in negative rates. We're already at 0, so there's nothing to say that we're going to bounce back. And even if we have a 10-year note at 2%, that's essentially giving money away for nothing. So you've got to get your cash working. Savings accounts, bond accounts, essentially for the foreseeable future, as far as I can tell, are going to earn you nothing. So that's where this team really steps up, and you need to look to alternatives and a cash management system tailored to your needs. So if you're sitting on about $1 million or more, even if you're earning 3 or 4% on that, that's an extra $4,000 a month. That pays someone's staff or on your salary, reduces your salary burden, and will help you out the other side. So you really need to make certain that that cash is maintained, it's safe, but it also is working for you, and we can help you, assist you with trying to get that money working for you. Outside of that, you need to reduce risk. And I know Chris was saying earlier about holding on to your investments for the long term, and I would agree with that, as long as you have the financial wherewithal and you can remain invested long term. But outside of that, you really need to reduce risk. I would stay out of the market personally. I think it's got a long way to go, but that's just me. And protect your business. That's number one. Protect this business that's going to provide you with your retirement planning in the future and your savings, because that's what's going to keep your business open for the moment. And then if there are any opportunities to take advantage of, look to alternatives. And I don't know if you want me to flip over to the last slide, which is on the economy, Jonathan, or is this the last one you wanted me to go to?
You can, if you want to touch on this briefly, and then we'll close with Carrie.
Okay. All right. So to me, we're already in a global recession. I just don't see how you can shut an economy down the size of the U.S. as we've done, and across the globe, it's everywhere is being closed down. China factories closed. Europe's essentially closed. And with that high rates of unemployment that's going to come from the temporary staff layoffs, we could easily see a 10% US GDP contraction in Q2. That's the number that I'm sort of pegging. I know I've read a number of economists saying 1%, 1.5%. I just don't see that. To me is way too conservative, and just seems that it'll be far worse than that. It might be temporary. It might bounce back straight away. But typically when you have a slowdown like this and you have this type of level of unemployment that we're going to see, and also the factories and everything closed down, you don't just fire it up and recover in a week and come bounding back. So I personally think the stock market's got a long way to go. In 2009, it got to 667, and I know there was a financial crisis. Right now, the S&P's at 2,400. You can decide where between here and 6,600 we're going to go. I personally think it's at least another 50, 60%. Will it come bounding straight back? Possibly. I'm not going to play that game, but to Chris's point, if you stick around for the long term, I'm probably going to be all right. The stimulus I think we're going to get from the Fed, which we're already seeing, 1.5 trillion was tossed in this week or last week, lowered interest rates to 0. I think what's really going to happen is it's going to magnify the divide between rich and poor even more. Those of us who have nothing and are working part-time or hourly are going to be really severely hurt. The economy will probably bounce back. The full-time employees and those people in our positions who are business owners will probably bounce back. Those who own stocks and bonds and properties will probably be fine. And the poor people in the street will get less and less, while the Jeff Bezos of the world earn another $20 billion. So I think the idea that the Fed adding more debt, lowering interest rates, if you consider that we're now 25 trillion in a hole and expanding really fast, the more debt that the government throws into the pool, and it's just going to have a muted impact on any kind of recovery, and will create more and more bubbles all over the place. But that is my shortened version of my long presentation, but I just wanted to get it out there and give you guys some sort of a toolbox I don't know if there's any questions that anyone has for me, but I'm certainly happy to work with anyone to try and make your cash work as hard for you as possible and help you. And if you have any questions on turnarounds or if your business is struggling.
Thanks, Steve. Steve's, as with all of our team members, very valuable member of the team. We're kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit. You can see there's differences of opinions that and again, creates great discussions and conversations around the conference table as a team as we meet together and have these conversations. We, as Brody alluded to at the very beginning, when we're putting together the plan and the strategies for our clients, we're taking all these things into consideration, worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, and everything in between. So, Steve brings a tremendous amount of background and experience to the team, and certainly a valuable member of the team. And Steve, I appreciate you being on here. I don't see any questions, so we're going to keep moving and wrap up here. Carrie Strain. Carrie, I've known Carrie for probably 15 years or more. Most of you are familiar with Carrie and his vast experience as the CEO of Strain Consulting. And so, Carrie, you and I have been in constant contact throughout this and before this, and we have a number of your clients, joint clients, on the call here today. So, can you give us your perspective from someone who's got over 30 years experience in dental and how to stay optimistic and keep proactive during this inactive time?
Can you hear me okay, Jonathan?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Wonderful. Well, listen, it's a pleasure to be on the call. I'm going to make it quick. I think Steve and Ali and the rest of the team have done a phenomenal job. I think it's hard right now for our clients to think past when is the period of shutdown going to end. And as Steve said, you've got to get your hands around your cash. You're going to have some basic expenses you need to fund within your business. You're going to pay your rent. You're going to do whatever you have to do to keep your business intact so you can emerge out of this, assuming we emerge out of this. And who's to know? That's the real anxiety driver. Ali, thank you as always for your great input. And it was a great webinar that's on your Facebook page for everybody to see. But I know many of you have dental intel. I feel like I have my PhD in dental intel as a consultant. If you don't know the numbers, you won't understand where somebody's been and where they want to go. But what we're saying to our clients, and I'll just kind of capsulize some of the comments that we put together in a webinar, and I've got another one coming up in 30 minutes. But leading in an ambitious and fast-changing environment, and we use the acronym SOS, social responsibility. As a leader in your practice, always act in a manner that benefits society. I know you have. I know you will. You have a higher calling. Be other-oriented. The extent that one tends to consider the perspective and feelings of another and acts accordingly. And there are legal requirements. I mean, Ali covered them. And then there's humanitarian ones. And then sacrifice. We're in a period of sacrifice for the greater good, the act of giving up something that you want to keep especially in order to help someone. And it may be time for you. You've given up your Fridays. You didn't have to work, or you haven't given up your Fridays. In the future, you're going to give up Fridays. You may have to work Saturdays and Sundays to make up for this economic loss. But Steve talked about emerging out of this, but he also said focus on, get your hands on cash. When I was talking to private equity or investment bankers this morning from the East Coast, I said, well, I know what my DSO clients are focusing on. What are your larger DSO? And knowing who they represent, they're focusing on two things, and it touches base with what Steve said. Liquidity, get your money organized, and solvency. Know that you have enough cash to pay the bills. The government's trying to prevent the growth of the infections with containment to see if we can flatline the growth. Stories yet to be told. Some societies are just into mitigation, meaning everybody's going to get sick. We'll develop our antibodies and see where it goes. I have no idea, but I know that you do need to be the leader for your employees and the community that you have, and you need to get ahead and stay ahead of the situation and stay informed. So, touch base with HR for Health. If you're not a client, become a client. You make a decision. Are you still open or not? I can't believe anybody's open right now. Then, if you've made a decision, you need to have an employee meeting regarding the options during the shutdown. Have you gone through a budget of the time you're going to remain open, using the reserves you've got for a limited period of time? And the adjustment in team, as Steve indicated, may be a couple of 2 or 3 stages. Are you truly aware of your financial obligations? What does the next 30 days look like in terms of emergencies hours, clinical staffing, administrative staffing? And with your team, make a commitment to get through this time together. We're going to emerge out the other side. There will be opportunity, but the past won't be the future. This is a very unsettling event. Notify your patients through email, social media, notice on the building of what your new hours and policies are. Our clients are meeting with their strain consultants to review the days they're losing in the shutdown and then planning on adding those lost days in the future. So over the summer months, assuming we get past 3 to 4 weeks here and we can open up again and it's safe, and if you've lost 16 to 20 days, you got to make those up over 3 to 4 months. So you're going to be putting in some Fridays, maybe some Saturdays. I don't know what you're going to do with 500 patients that haven't been seen. So these are the things we want you to map out. Financial obligations, meet with your aligned advisor team. I will tell you one thing that we really like our DI clients to commit to. Doctors, you're going to have a lot of time. And you have in your patient finder an ability to immediately from home look up and identify every patient you've seen. You can sort them, but what's wrong with reaching out to them and sending yourself a note, just letting them know you care for them, you're available, you're planning on opening if they have any questions, to let you know. And furthermore, if they have an emergency contact information for them. We need to plan to reopen, whether it's the 6th of April, the 13th, or the 20th, and leading that plan today is what you need to get ahead of the power curve on. So I hope all is well with you during this period of time. If you'd like to reach out to me, please do so, and we'll schedule a time to chat. If you have dental intel or any practice management software, I'm glad to get on it and take a look around and give you some advice. I've worked with over 6,000 practices and 25,000 analysis we've conducted. And we just want to help people, be a resource through Jonathan's team. So, Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Kerry, for being on here. I appreciate you, and you're a good friend and long-term friend. So I appreciate everything you do for your clients, for our clients, and for our community. Thanks, Kerry. All right.
Jen Schroeder played it.
All right.
That's the kitchen clinic I want to take.
All right. So lastly, and then we'll have some closing remarks. And I know we've been on here an hour and a half. We want to let you guys get back to your day. But Dr. Brady Frank is, again, I've known for a long time. I've known Brady for 13, 14 years. Brady's had a number of practices in Washington State and Oregon State, and Brady's been through dental recessions before. And so, Brady, wanted to give you a few minutes to share some of your closing remarks as we wrap up here and before we give our closing remarks.
Awesome, Jonathan. Well, hey, thank you for organizing. This has been incredible. I've been on every second, and of course, in our DDSO Alliance and our shared clients, Jonathan, and even the clients we work with on strain side of the table. Man, just great stuff, Jonathan. So thank you. Everybody needs to have access to that information. So I do agree with, I think 4 of the previous speakers have said, hey, this is when it happens. This is when the greatest wealth transfers in history happen during the greatest times of change. During recessions, the wealthy, right, dentists are further separated from the dentists that are not wealthy. And I can attest to that. Jonathan and I were doing a seminar together, a phasing out seminar before the recession, and I watched through that seminar series what happened with dentists who weren't prepared in that recession, and it was ugly. And as I watched that, I did things that the silent minority, uber successful minority, were doing in the last recession. So what our previous speaker before Kerry Strain mentioned is he said, this is going to hang around with us for 1 or 2 years. This isn't a 1 or 2 week thing. And so right now, in addition to all the incredible information you've been given, I believe this is what you need to do. Get a notepad and start planning what you're going to do with your business. How are you going to triple your net worth like I did during the last recession? Between 2008 and 2010, tripled my net worth while every other dentist and dental office, or the majority of them, did not do so well. So I'm going to give you kind of the keys, right? Of course, have cash, certainly. By the way, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to give you the keys on how not just to survive this, but to thrive. And yes, having cash is important, but you guys have something incredible, human capital. Human capital, and I want to show you how to use that human capital that nobody can take away from you. No government can take it away from you. It is your skills. So if you're on this call right now and you are an implant doc, if you're on this call right now and you do clear aligners, a lot of doctors don't do implants or clear aligners. Only 22% of practices do aligners. Only 20% of practices do implants. So as we come out of this, whether it's going to be a V like this or more of a U like that, think about what you're going to do now. And so I'm going to go over different companies that have business models that will work in this economy. So what did I do from 2008 to 2010? I bought a lot of value-added practices. This is from the book DDSO Strategies. And Carrie Strain and I and Jonathan and I have talked about a lot of this good stuff. But basically, there's going to be a lot of offices shutting down. And you can take over these offices for no cash and no debt. You can take over. There will be not thousands of offices that shut down. There will be probably 10,000 or more offices that shut down. So this is your opportunity to get into those with no cash. I did it. Multiple offices. We call them value-added practices. That's number one. Number two, what did I do during the time? So a lot of dentists will be looking for extra revenue streams. So if you have a practice, I'm going to call it an Uber or Airbnb business model that goes into a practice that offers those services, that is huge. I did it with 9 different practices. Myself and 4 independent contractors that I hired went into 9 different practices and did implants. We crushed it. Our overhead was 38%. My income was higher on my Uber or Airbnb business model than my practice during that time. So I'm just going to go over that real briefly because Jonathan said, Brady, go over all the stuff that like is a dentist would go over because all the other speakers are non-dentists. So I'm going to go over that. What can you do as a dentist using your human capital? And I'll go very quickly through this. Why was Uber so successful? Uber was going to lease a place in San Francisco and have 200 Mercedes. They were going to buy 200 Mercedes. The other business partner said, no, we don't need to own the assets and the liabilities. We don't need to lease the place where we store the Mercedes. We don't need to lease the Mercedes. We need to use other people's assets or liabilities for our benefit. They're so glad that they made that decision. You can take your skills and your doctor's associate skills and go ahead and use those in other people's practices and have a much, much lower overhead, about a 38% overhead doing that. I'm talking about when we start to come out of this, when we're still in the recession, but now we can do dentistry again. Every dentist is going to want more money. And so I'll go over with, now's not the time to go over the exact details, but I use a services and facilities use agreement where that practice earns a percentage of those procedures in their practice. 9 of them in 1 year. So Uber and Airbnb don't own any asset. They don't have any liabilities like leases. Those are incredible businesses that use your human capital. So those are incredible coming out of this. Bank short sales with the Uber and Airbnb traveling businesses with implants and clear aligners. You don't need to take over leases and whatnot. So I like those better than just taking over practices that are failing. How do you take over those practices that are failing? Get in touch with myself or Jonathan. We work very closely together with Carrie Strain. We work with the banks that get the short sales. So if a dentist hasn't paid for 3 months in a row, it goes into the short sale department on the bank, and you can pick those up. If there's $800,000 of debt, you can pick up, I'd say a good deal is $150,000, and they'll do the loan with you, especially with the stimulus money. So pick up practices right in the coming months, not now, but 2 or 3 months from now. Pick them up for pennies on the dollar. Once again, the chapter in DDSO Strategies, the book, at ddsostrategiesbook.com. There's a waiting list. Just plug it in. Alicia will get you the copy because of this. Not 3 months out, but in 3 to 5 days. We go over how to pick up those practices, just like I did in the last recession. So, so just remember, this is going to be either a short-term or a moderately long-term thing, a 2-year deal. Right now is the time to develop your future business models of taking over value-added practices, expanding to multiple locations without taking on the liabilities or debt with an Airbnb or Uber type model. Jonathan will email you he just said email you the book link so you can get your hands on a book. Jonathan's actually going to write a chapter in there, and also many of the folks that were on this will add contributing stuff. But remember, this is the time to triple your net worth. The speaker before, Carrie Strain, said the divide between the wealthy and the poor is going to increase. Now is the time when you need to make a decision. What is my net worth going to look like in 2 years? Robert Kiyosaki said, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. You make your money when you buy. In 2008, I was buying houses in Phoenix. I was buying commercial properties. I was buying practice, right? And you don't need cash to do this. You don't need debt. You take over debt subject to existing financing, or you refinance it with banks. Don't worry about needing money. To take over assets in a recession, you don't need any cash. You do not need any cash. Use your human capital, right? The knowledge you have, the skills you have as a provider, and you can do that. So anyway, it sucks, the situation we are in. I hate it. It's horrible. But I've listened to the whole thing, and I agree with 98% of everything everybody said. Once again, Jonathan, thank you for doing this. As we work with Jonathan's team, Carrie Strange folks, get in touch with us as well. We'd be happy to show you the exact business plan I used from 2008 to 2010 to crush it. And that defined my next 10 years, frankly. I opened an implant company, a manufacturing company that sold implants for less cost. Because when they're coming out of recession, are dentists buying implants for this price or this price? My institute's flooded with people learning new skills with implants, right? So folks that have an implant institute, minor institute, as we start pulling out of this later this year, every clinician's going to say, I got to learn new skills. I got to do clear aligners. I got to do implants. I got to get someone in my practice that does that. So obviously the folks that we're working with understand this stuff. The previous speaker before Strain mentioned, now's the time to market your business, to grow your business, but you got to change your strategy. So get in touch with Kyle Hill. We can get you in touch. He's been doing incredible things on the marketing side. You know why we like to be open on Fridays? Why do we like to be open on Fridays? Because other dentists are not, right? And we receive those patients. Now, except for this period while we're shut down, I'm talking after we're shut down, nobody's going to be ready to market. If you're, boom, first there with marketing in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whenever it is that they open up again, you're going to pull over so many hordes of new patients like I did in the last recession. It was unbelievable. So I've kept all the marketing campaigns that I used in the last recession. Kyle Hill has all those. So coming out of the recession, my practice actually grew 25% to 50% each year and every year coming out. So remember, use this as your time to grow. Use this as your time to dominate. But right now, in the next few weeks and even next few months, use this as your time to survive. Right after survival, now it's time to thrive. But right now, while you're not doing dentistry, study this stuff. Read DDSO Strategies, the book. And if you haven't read Transition Time, my other book, go to transitiontimebook.com. Read that. Study now. Now's your time to get up on that. Figure out how you're going to triple your net worth in this next recession. And so anyway, hope that helped, Jonathan. Jonathan, you're amazing. You and I have been together for 14 years. You and I have been through the thick and thin together. Jonathan's the real deal. Thanks all the speakers, and I turn it over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Brady. I appreciate your forever optimism and your experience as well. So we're going to wrap up here. I appreciate everyone being on the call. I just want to close with the action plan. So I think as far as next steps are concerned, and what you'll be hearing from our team is, we will continue to stay in touch with all of your banks for all of our clients and informing them what other banks are doing. I had a call yesterday with one of our clients' banks, telling him what other banks were doing, and it sounded like they were going to adapt some of those. Go on right now and apply for SBA funding. It sounds like, according to Josh and his partner, that is something to do regardless of what your bank is going to do for you. So go do that immediately. Encourage your employees to file for unemployment, and to take advantages of what your state is doing. And then for each of our clients, we will be in constant contact throughout this. Again, I put the picture of the team up here because you're not alone. As I've shared with many of you over this last week, we are in this together. We have your back. You're not alone. It's my belief that this is and will be a defining moment for many of us for the rest of our lives. There will be times in the future that we will look back to 2020 and say, you know what we're going through now is hard, but it's nothing compared to what we went through in 2020. You can get through this. You will get through this. You have a community, and as a community, we will get through this together. I was on a webinar last night. I'll be on a webinar later today and tomorrow. We're continuing to gather information. We will continue to make sure you, as our clients, are informed and kept up to date to the latest assets and services available to you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to you. File a claim with your business overhead policy. Let the insurance companies decide whether or not to pay that claim. If you have any questions about that, reach out to Rob or Tierney or Jackie on our team. If we can assist you filling out SBA paperwork, reach out to us. We are a resource as you go through this. Use the downtime to work on your business. You've been given a gift, 2 to 3 to maybe 4 weeks to really work on your business so we can all come out of this thing stronger and better on the back end. So I just want to let all of you know, we love you guys. We're here for you. We've got your back. Please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're not an Aligned Advisors client and you want to learn more about what our team does for our clients, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk to you and share with you our resources that we have. Again, we're in this together. We love you guys, and we'll be in constant contact. Thank you, everyone who participated, everyone who joined, and for everyone for what everyone's doing for our community. We'll be in touch. Thank you, everyone.